Cult leaders all share something: charisma, control, and a promise of belonging.
You're a creator, and you're a creator, and I know you're a creator. And the reason we are all creators is because we do something that's greater than ourselves.
He talked about a revolution, about becoming president of the world, the first ever trillionaire, living forever, and people listened.
If you're a member of the regeneration, make some noise!
They sacrificed their time, pay, and social life for him.
Show them your heart. Show them your truth. Never give up. Work until you drop.
But in the end, he burned $47 billion and walked away with over $1 billion of it.
This is who I am. This is what I do. I tackle something until it's right. I will not stop.
The 2008 financial crisis didn't just wipe out savings, it wiped out faith. Banks collapsed after being called safe, and those executives that crashed the economy, they got bailed out. Homeowners lost everything, and no one went to jail. So the message people heard was, the system wasn't built to protect you, it was built to survive you. After that, work changed. Hours got longer, hustle replaced stability, side projects replaced pensions, unions faded out. Everything that was social moved online, but people somehow felt lonelier. You could have 500 Facebook friends and still eat dinner alone every night. The old deal where you worked hard, climbed the ladder, retire securely, stopped sounding like a plan. It sounded like a fairy tale. But something else was missing. Meaning. The feeling that your work mattered, being part of something bigger than a paycheck. And into that vacuum walked Adam Neumann. He didn't pitch Office Space, he pitched we.
The world has shifted. It used to be an I world, right? iPhone, iMac, all about me, me, me. If you take the me and you flip it and you get the we, you understand that we're about to change the way people work and way people live, but more importantly, change the world.
Open floors where you could see everyone, long tables where strangers became collaborators, music drifting through the hallways, kombucha, whatever that is, where water coolers used to be, neon signs glowing commandments like, do what you love, dare to be rare, hustle harder. New members didn't just rent desks, they stayed after meetings, they lingered, they brought friends, they even came in on weekends. One early member said, I didn't just find an office, I found my people. That was the product. Not square footage, not Wi-Fi, belonging.
Hey guys, this is WeWork, the world's first physical social network.
Adam Neumann was born in Israel in 1979. His mother moved him into a kibbutz, a communal world where you shared meals, labor, space, and identity. The kibbutz gave him structure and a feeling of belonging. Then came the Israeli Navy, 5 years of hierarchy and brotherhood. People who knew him later described him as a confident guy who never took no for an answer. In 2001, he moved to New York with about $1,000 to try to make it big in business. He first tried baby clothes with knee pads. Failed. He tried women's shoes with collapsible heels. Failed. Then he met Miguel McKelvey, a quiet and thoughtful guy with a background in architecture. He was raised in an Oregon commune by a single mother who dumpster dove for food. These two were complete opposites, except for one thing. They grew up in similar environments. Neumann on a kibbutz and McKelvey in a commune. They met at a party and in 2008 convinced their landlord to let them split the floors of an empty Brooklyn building into shared offices and rent them out. Adam and Miguel were translating their childhoods into a business model. They called it a capitalistic kibbutz, a system where community mattered, but hustling harder was what got you paid. And that's when Green Desk was born. Adam pitched it as an experience, but really, they rented cheap office space. It worked though. He and Miguel sold their part of the company to their landlord. Brooklyn wasn't big enough for Adam, and when you're building an empire, you need resources. Adam needed money, and someone willing to believe. So he pitched every office building owner who would take the meeting. They all passed. Then he met Joel Schreiber, a young real estate investor who wasn't afraid of risk. Joel asked Adam how much he thought the company was worth. Adam figured he'd throw out a ridiculously high number just to see a reaction. $45 million. Joel didn't laugh, which should have been the first warning sign. Joel eventually agreed to put in $15 million, but for a third of the company. This deal changed everything. Not just because of the money, but because Joel Schreiber was well known in New York real estate. Suddenly doors opened for Adam and Miguel. But Joel didn't ride WeWork to the top. His role ended early. He eventually sold his stake in the company to other investors. He has his own issues though, but that's a completely different video. Religions need rituals. So did WeWork. Every Monday it was "Thank God it's Monday" meetings. There was music, speeches from Adam about changing the world, followed by tequila shots and chants of WeWork.
When I say we, you say we.
Exciting at first, then mandatory, then it was cult-like. Adam became obsessed with the song "Roar" by Katy Perry, and would blast it in the office to the point where some employees couldn't even concentrate or do their jobs. WeWork onboarding meetings became propaganda sessions. Mythology presentations about Adam walking through a kibbutz, his hands grazing lavender, thinking about community and loving one another. They even changed the organizational structure to have mini CEOs in different regions. They called them CWEOs, Chief We Officers. The videos were pure propaganda. Everything about them was propaganda. Then came summer camp. Every year, thousands of employees flown to a field in England with tents and bonfires. Executives on stage leading chants, mandatory participation dressed up as celebration, free alcohol was everywhere, with executives stumbling around high. Even the head of HR was rushed to the hospital. One employee compared it to The Big Short crashing into Midsommar, and Adam barefoot in the center, tequila in hand, talking about elevating human consciousness. He told employees that WeWork could solve world hunger and end homelessness, and quote, "We could solve the problem of children without parents and do it within 2 years." And you know what? People actually believed him.
I was in my mid-20s looking for purpose, and here's this person selling this dream, and I was an easy target for that. I definitely wanted the world he was telling me about.
But cults have rules. People learn not to bring bad news to Adam. Bring solutions. Better yet, bring enthusiasm. If someone questioned something, they were blocking the energy against the mission. Bad energy? That had consequences. Rebecca Newman, Adam's wife, installed as Chief Brand Officer, despite zero business training, enforced vibe. People got fired fast. Not for performance, but for vibe. Not enthusiastic enough? Gone. Questioned a decision? Gone. Disrupted the energy? Gone. She banned meat at company events, even though Adam ate steak on a private jet. On one flight, marijuana smoke filled the cabin so thick that crew members had to put on oxygen masks. On another flight back from Israel, Adam allegedly stuffed weed into a cereal box before crossing international borders. The private jet company found out and eventually refused to work with WeWork. So, Adam convinced the board to buy a $63 million Gulfstream for a startup losing hundreds of millions a year. By 2014, WeWork had 100 locations. By 2016, 200. And by 2019, 425. The faster it grew, the more money it lost. And the hedge funds and investors pressured Adam to rein it in. So, Adam called an all-hands meeting. Employees filed into the room. Adam announced that 7% of the workforce was being laid off. Then, trays of tequila shots appeared. Adam raised his glass and said, "To the future of WeWork." The remaining employees looked around confused. Some drank, some didn't. Then, the music started. Daryl McDaniels of Run-DMC walked out on stage, hugged Adam, and started performing "It's Tricky." People who still had jobs were expected to dance, to celebrate, to show that they were still committed to the energy. 1 minute employees are crying and hugging their friends who just got laid off. The next, they're partying to Run-DMC and literally drinking the tequila Kool-Aid. One employee even accidentally accessed their supervisor's email. She saw an email about those upcoming layoffs and the manager bragging and joking about laying off 7% of her team. She kept going through emails and found documents showing WeWork had to adjust revenue down by 80%. They were basically lying about profits every time they were putting something out to the media. And Adam did his best to spin the media with some of the most ironic quotes.
You actually turning a profit in the business?
We are definitely turning a profit. I'm bored of the businesses that don't turn a profit. I don't believe in them. I need a cash flow positive business.
Every visionary needs a backer. And Adams arrived in 2016. Masayoshi-san, also known as Masa, ran SoftBank. He controlled the $100 billion Vision Fund, the largest pool of startup capital in history. Masa didn't just invest in spreadsheets, he invested in feelings. He turned a $20 million investment on Alibaba into $70 billion. One of the greatest venture wins ever. His philosophy? I look at the eyes. I can see the sparkle. Yeah, well, my eyes would sparkle at the sight of $20 million too. At first, Masa never believed in WeWork. He thought it was overvalued and not really a unique business. But he was charmed by Adam enough to accept a meeting the next time he was in New York City. And Adam had been preparing for weeks. This was a make or break moment for him and the company. The meeting was scheduled for 2 hours. But Masa arrived an hour late and said, I only have 12 minutes. Adam then went into a speed run tour of the office and his pitch. And at exactly 12 minutes, Masa apologized and told Adam that he had to leave for his next meeting. But he offered Adam a ride to continue the pitch until that next meeting. In the backseat of the car, Adam takes out his WeWork pitch deck on an iPad, but Masa tells him to put it away. Then, Masa asks a question. In a fight, who wins? The smart guy or the crazy guy? Adam didn't hesitate. The crazy guy. Masa smiled and told Adam that he wasn't crazy enough, and that he needed to think 10 times bigger. Masa then agrees to give him $4.4 billion and a directive to go crazy with it.
$4 billion in your company. Is that accurate?
There is nothing I can say on that topic, but that sounds like a big number.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
Sounds big.
Inside the company, something shifted. If SoftBank believed this deeply, who was anyone else to question it? I am WeWork, Adam told employees. And with that declaration, they expanded recklessly. Hundreds of locations, dozens of countries, 50,000 desks added every month. Adam started having people report back anything said about him when he wasn't around, which created a paranoid culture where people were scared to speak up. One executive described it as Game of Thrones, Adam pitching executives against each other. Meanwhile, employees were living in WeLive, which were WeWork's apartments. Employees were working in WeWork and living in WeLive. Their entire social became WeWork. Friends from outside would visit once, see what it was, and never come back. One employee said they would walk out with this strange impression. Pretty quickly, I had alienated most of my friends outside of work. When Adam brought investors through, employees got a message. Activate the space. Go into the common areas, hang out, be casual, bring your laptop. They'd blast Juicy by Biggie Smalls on loop, waiting for that moment when the investor walked through. Employees couldn't just relax, even when they're at home. They were props in Adam's performance. And it got old fast. Adam once told employees, I could fire all of you and do this by myself. He didn't frame this as risk, he framed it as destiny. Schools, housing, gyms, entire cities, everything built around we. One employee described what kept people there. Being told you're changing the world creates a feeling nothing else can replicate. Well, you know what else helps? Money.
At that time, we were also being told, Adam told me I was going to be a millionaire.
Most people agreed to salaries less than they would make at somewhere else in a regular field or whatnot, because you were given a salary and a certain value of stock options.
Adam would talk about it all the time. You all have equity in the company, which I don't think is quite true. If you have stock options, you don't actually own equity in the company. You own a security that gives you an option to buy equity in the company. I would see that people didn't understand the bet that you're taking and what you're getting. You might think that the possibility of getting a $1 million payout is far higher than it actually is in reality.
And that's what kept people working 80 hours a week. But this is when employees felt it slipping. At its peak in 2019, WeWork was burning $100 million a week. With only months of cash left and private investors tapping out, there was only one option left: go public. Adam wanted the IPO. He wanted the potential billions that came with going public. He just didn't want to answer to anyone. August 2019. WeWork filed its S-1, the document required before going public on the stock market. For the first time, the numbers would be exposed and the story of the company had to survive it. It didn't. The document didn't open with numbers or with risk factors or a business description like every other S-1 ever did before it. No, it was a photo book that opened with a dedication. We dedicate this to the energy of we, greater than any one of us, but inside each of us. Everyone on Wall Street mocked it, obviously. These guys didn't care about fluffy mission statements or cute photos. They wanted the numbers. And boy, were they in for a treat.
WeWork's losses last year were $1.9 billion. We have been getting some of WeWork's financials for a long time already, but what was so surprising in the S1 is that the pace of these losses that are already huge are actually accelerating. So for the first half of this year alone, they were above $900 million.
So Adam invented a new metric: community-adjusted EBITDA. A metric designed to make losses look like momentum by removing, all the bad stuff like costs. Wall Street figured out Adam was asking to be valued like a tech platform, when really, they were just an office rental company, behaving like a lifestyle brand, and ruled like a monarchy. Adam held super voting shares, 20 votes per share while everyone else got 1. The document included a clause: if Adam left, his wife Rebecca would choose his replacement. Not the board or the investors, his wife. And then came the self-dealing. Adam personally owned several buildings, leased them to WeWork, his own company, and collected rent from both sides. He was a landlord and a tenant who got to set the terms. WeWork had already paid him $20 million in rent. Hundreds of millions more were locked in. Then there was a trademark. He actually trademarked the word we, then sold it back to his own company for $5.9 million. WeWork, a company built on the idea of we, had to pay its founder to use the word we. Now imagine if Steve Jobs charged Apple a licensing fee every time they used the word iPhone. But because of intense backlash, Adam reluctantly returned the money back to the company. Adam had also taken $700 million out of the company, selling his shares while again asking the public to invest. Also buried in the risk section was a sentence that read, "The company's success depended, in part, on the charisma of its founder." And if that wasn't enough ego boosting, the S1 read like a love letter to Adam Neumann.
Adam, as in quote, Adam, end quote, as in Neumann is mentioned 169 times versus an average of 25 mentions for other founder CEOs in their own unicorn prospectuses.
Now all of this led to the valuation of the company crashing. The IPO was dead.
Getting some breaking news on WeWork. We'll get to Dom Chu at HQ with that. Dom?
All right, so Carl, WeWork is now officially pulling its IPO. They set it for the record now.
Within weeks, the board, the investors, JP Morgan, and even Adam's golden goose, Masa, wanted him out as CEO.
Another twist in the seemingly endless WeWork saga. New this morning, board members and early investors in the start now pushing for the removal of its controversial co-founder and CEO Adam Neumann.
WeWork is weeks away from running out of money. The cult leader has to go, but there's a problem. He can't be fired. Adam holds super voting shares. The board can't remove him, the investors can't outvote him, so they pressure him instead. The investors tell him that Wall Street won't touch the IPO with him as CEO. Basically, if he doesn't leave, the company is dead. So finally, facing the possibility that his own creation dies, he agrees to step down.
Adam Neumann, the colorful founder of the company, is stepping down. He's going to be decreasing his voting control of the company. These are all things that some of the investors in WeWork, like SoftBank, had been pushing for. This shouldn't come as a surprise after all of this news has come out in recent weeks about how Neumann maybe wasn't fit to run this company.
The movement must continue, even without him. Because for a cult leader, the worst outcome isn't always exile. It's when the believers stop believing. Plus, He also makes sure he doesn't leave empty-handed.
Probably the most stunning part of this deal is the payout to Adam Neumann, the co-founder and CEO. It looks like as part of this, he's going to get a package worth about $1.7 billion.
Why are WeWork shareholders and employees not going to sue Adam Neumann and sue SoftBank for a deal that clearly advantages him in a way that, even with his controlling stake, is a very questionable approach?
Yeah, questionable approach? Yeah, that's really putting it mildly. Masa negotiates his exit and gives him one of the greatest golden parachutes of all time. SoftBank paid him $1.7 billion just to leave. Those 2,400 employees that got laid off, well, they didn't get that kind of ending. The average stock option value when they joined, over $100,000. Average value when WeWork collapsed, $0. And Adam, who spent a career talking about elevating human consciousness, good vibes, and quote, success isn't about money, but it's the ability to give. Well, he looked at those thousands of employees, the ones he called family, took that $1.7 billion and gave it right to his bank account. So when it came down to it for Adam, all that talk of we was really all about me. In 2022, after every scandal, after every failure, and after every screwed over employee, Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most respected VC firms in the world, wrote Adam Neumann a $350 million check for his new business, Flow. Because Adam found a new crisis to monetize: the soullessness of the American rental market. To hear Adam Neumann pitch the company, he actually pitches it as a philosophy.
Coming to your higher self, between you and yourself, your neighbor, and the world. So our mission is actually bringing everybody together.
Tech integrated living, and of course that sweet, sweet community. The language, it felt familiar. But if you cut through the buzzwords, he's buying thousands of apartments across the Sunbelt and promising to turn renters into owners. But not actual ownership, of course. He's promising the feeling of ownership, whatever that means. Critics call it a glorified property management company, but to Mark Andreessen, he called it one of the most important bets his firm has ever made. Did he not learn from Masa? I mean, are these guys all just degenerate gamblers? Well, they're billionaires for a reason. They're betting on the man, Adam, who can look a billionaire in the eye and convince him that a luxury apartment complex in Fort Lauderdale is actually the cure for human loneliness. Flow is valued at $1 billion. Adam Neumann is richer, and the lesson of WeWork didn't disappear. It was just ignored. Because belief still pays. And someone will always sell it. And someone else will always buy it.